Now, we have a tech legend, two tech legends about to come on this stage. One, Qualtrics founder and Utah Jazz owner, Ryan Smith. Give it up for Ryan. And two, Netflix founder, Reed Hastings. Now, when we bring these big of tech luminaries to the state of Utah, we stand up and give them a standing ovation when they come out. So to welcome them out, please welcome Utah Jazz Chief Communications Officer, Klein.
Hi, everyone. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Ryan Smith, the founder of Qualtrics, co-founder of Smith Entertainment Group, and the owner of the Utah Jazz, and Reed Hastings, who has completely transformed the content space and how we view content over the last 25 years. Reed and Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. Ryan, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, but I have to say that I'm probably a little more excited about having Reed here with us.
Me too.
It feels serendipitous to have the man who pioneered streaming sitting here on the day that the Utah Jazz launched their streaming platform, Jazz Plus.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary. I thought this was a very friendly invite, and then when I show up to find out that you launched streaming on the same day, I'm like, okay, that's the way you want to rock.
We're competitors.
Yeah, exactly. But I have to say, I signed up for the Jazz Plus. Great user interface. It's getting very smooth, so looking forward to the next game.
So Reed's watching our content now, so no pressure there. And I'm sure that most people are looking at the two of you on the stage thinking that we're about to talk tech. That's not the plan. Or they think that Reed is going to talk about innovations in streaming, and Ryan's going to talk about what's next in Utah recreation, and it's actually the opposite. Both of you are founders of wildly successful tech companies, and you're entering your second phase. And what's interesting is those second phases have nothing to do with tech, and they're all about going all in on Utah and enhancing the community experience. So let's talk Utah. I'm a transplant to Utah. I moved here August of last year, and I've been all in. Thank you. He was very convincing. So Reed, let's start with you. What brought you to Silicon Slopes today? How did this panel come about? And what are you interested in talking about if it's not tech?
Well, Ryan and I met 5 years ago at Silicon Slopes with me introducing him for getting some like all-star award, I don't know, some big thing. But I'm a Californian who's been skiing here in Park City for 20 years, and it just got so crowded. And one day in 2016, we drove an hour and a half north up to Ogden and went to Powder Mountain. And I was like, oh my God, I have found my place. I mean, you know. So we built a house up there. We've been, loving the community. And unfortunately, the mountain has been in financial trouble, and it's kind of a turnaround. And I retired from Netflix to be executive chair about 6-7 months ago. I was sitting around in April. I've been skiing February and March there, and one of the two co-founders came to me and said, hey, would you buy Powder Mountain? And I said, yes. And I said, oh, what's the price? So I'm kind of a rube when it comes to negotiating, but I'm so excited. And there's some good changes for this winter, but like the winter next, it's going to be unbelievable. Think about what Ryan has done for the Jazz here and this place, and we get to compare notes, and we're going to really make Powder this incredibly exciting community. So I'm pumped about investing in Utah. Now I get to spend a lot more time here, so it's great.
This wasn't even Silicon Slopes, Reed Hastings, a Utah resident pretty much at this point. What do we think about that?
Well, Ryan pinned me down earlier, and I had to admit that if I were starting Netflix today, I'd start it in Salt Lake. I mean, it's just such an incredible tech community, and seeing all the action and excitement here, and then you got the ability to live outdoors, and it's unbelievable what you got here, and it's growing like crazy.
That should be the commercial for Utah.
I don't think you need it. You're doing well already.
That's pretty cool.
Ryan, what about Reed's influence and him coming into Powder Mountain and being part of this community gets you most excited about what's ahead?
Well, I think, so first of all, I think is yourself and others, Reed probably skied all over the world, right? And found something that we all have found somewhere along the journey that's like, wow, this place is amazing. I think wellness is a premium. If we look at the world and where it's at, is like people need to feel happy, and we were voted the happiest state in the country. I don't think that's by accident. I did a podcast earlier, and they were like, wait, are you selling happiness in Utah? And I was like, maybe. And then what I'm most excited about is not that Reed purchased a mountain. I mean, that's kind of weird to think about, but it's actually pretty cool. But everything Reed's done, he's been a steward over investment and creating an experience and actually changing everything he's ever done. And it was before, even before, if you think about it, before Netflix, it was pure software and other things. He's an innovator. He's not going to sit back. And we as a community are all going to be beneficiaries of that. And he speaks our language. He's part of it. He wants to invest. He wants to give back more than he ever takes. And that's what we just got. And you can't make it up. And I hope everyone understands that. And if you look at Powder Mountain, I don't think we're going to look at it the same. And it might not be this year, but next year, it's going to change forever.
Every lift's going to have 2 TVs on it.
Streaming Jazz Plus content.
Yeah.
Reed, can you tell us, you teased it a little bit before, and Ryan, you just referenced it, but can you give this group a little bit of insight into your vision for Powder Mountain?
Yeah, I mean, Powder's got incredible potential, but it's just been undercapitalized, not enough money, so the lifts are pretty old. We've got one of the oldest lifts in Utah, 53 years old.
Wow.
It's a 3-chair, but we only allow 2 people on it because we're kind of worried what would happen if we put 3 on it. So that's an example of the infrastructure, but that's pretty easy to change and to upgrade, so it just needs money. We're going to put that in. So really excited about kind of upgrading the lifts, upgrading the parking, the bathrooms, like basics, and it's going to make it a much better experience. But longer term, we're trying to make it the premium place in the world for being and doing. And so doing's kind of obvious, mountain biking and hiking and skiing and snowcats and amazing stuff. The being is really important for us. We want it to be also a place of great reflection, great beauty, great stillness, wellness, all of the, frankly, spiritual sides. And most resorts just focus on adrenaline. And we want to focus on adrenaline and peacefulness, that we think the next generation is looking for a little better experience, a little broader. And so, it's going to take us a couple years to really pull that off, but that's what we're really excited about.
How do you do that?
Well, that's kind of secret right now. We've got a plan, but it's not yet out. And next summer, we'll be announcing the next version of Powder. So stay tuned for next summer.
Ryan, you've often said that...
Thank you.
You've often said that a lot of players, when they leave, talk about how much they love Utah, and it was the healthiest they've ever been. So it sounds like Powder Mountain is exactly that place, and it must feel great to have a partner like that in Reed, in an unofficial way, in building that out more from your wellness standpoint, bringing players here and just kind of celebrating everything that Utah offers in that realm.
I think I'll give you an example. Like we staycation a lot in our own state. And I think if you're from southern Utah or you're from Provo-Orem or Utah County, what I love about Utah is that even if we're staying in Park City or we're staying up in Ogden, it feels like you're 3,000 miles away, but you might only be 30 miles away. And I think there's a huge opportunity for our community to gather. And what I'm excited about is that. I mean, I think the question for you, Reed, is like how you see this group. And I'm not trying to ask the questions here, but like I'm curious.
Right.
Like, how do you see this group being a part of Powder Mountain?
Well, I think every community, in this case the tech community, but it could also be the basketball community, they want to do things in an unusual place that brings them together, that connects them, that helps them, really bond. And Powder will be one place. There's others. I mean, Sundance is a great place too. But we certainly want to be one of the places that you all want to bring your families, you want to bring your companies, your employees, and do something together. And then again, back to our being, also a really reflective place. And we're going to have some pretty cool experiences on that reflection side. They're going to make Powder feel like, okay, this is interesting and different. And it's not just the same as, it's hard to compete with Alta and Snowbird for intense adrenaline. Right? So you want to position a little complimentary and say, yeah, that's great for adrenaline, but what we're great for is incredible powder through the trees, uncrowded, and then the set of experiences coming that really are soulful.
That's cool.
So I'm going to ask the next question to both of you. Ryan, you founded Qualtrics 22 years ago, and Reed, Netflix is in its 26th year, so you founded it in 1997, I believe. Starting this year, you both officially moved into executive chairman roles. So can you...
It's a victory. You made it out the other side.
Can you tell this group a little bit about what that transition has been like, the good, the bad, the ugly, the things you're still figuring out, things that you might not have even anticipated yet? Can you give us that whole picture? Reed, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're fortunate enough to be in a growing market segment, the internet, technology, that kind of thing, you have a chance to build really long-term companies. And most of us build companies that get bought. My first company was like that. We did it for 6 years, and it got bought. And it's a great outcome, too. It's a great system in that way. But once in a while, you get a company where you're able to grow it for 26 years, and it's going to go on. And that's a very unique experience, and I feel very fortunate to be part of it. We almost went bankrupt 3 years into starting. That we were mailing a lot of DVDs, right? That was a very hard business. We had to compete with Blockbuster. They were huge. We were tiny. I mean, it's been really hard struggles along the way. And strangely, tomorrow is the last day of our DVD shipments. We still have about 1 million of you, thank you, who are DVD members. Most of you probably forgot about it, and you're just paying us but not getting shipments. But anyway, that's all finished tomorrow, which is sort of very symbolic that streaming is the future. And it's why I'm kind of excited about Ryan and Caroline's Utah Jazz streaming, because sports has been the holdout. TV and movies went to streaming a decade ago. Okay, and now what we're seeing is the entrepreneurial teams are really building out the relationship with their fans, and there's such an opportunity for the flexibility and all the things that streaming can do that old-style linear broadcast television can't. So the innovation ahead, I think, for you guys is amazing, and the innovation for Netflix is going to be amazing. And then I guess I'm just super happy to get to do something totally different, Powder Mountain. Stretch different muscles, invest in that community. So that's maybe parallel path to the Jazz. And, I look forward to coming down to some Jazz games, and I hope Ryan's going to come up at ski and Powder, and it's going to be great.
I think we said before that you were going to come shoot some hoops. Ryan was going to go ski. Maybe we'll film that for Jazz Plus, and that'll be the next.
Hey.
I think your skiing may be better than my basketball. So,
wow. I think very few companies have had an impact that Netflix has had. I mean, we've done a lot, but that's insane. What do you look back and is it weird? I mean, you're single-handedly responsible for part of the population growth in Utah.
Well, that went right over my head, so I'm just going to keep going here. I think the most relevant thing for this audience of entrepreneurs is around culture. We've been pretty public about culture and how we think about it, and I hope that you guys experience that and then build upon it. So I got to build upon Hewlett-Packard. Today you're like, who? Okay, but the HP way in the 70s and 80s was a real step up from how companies had been led before that. And then we tried to build on that on top of Sun, on top of Oracle, all those companies, and do something even better, really focused on the high-performance team. And I'm sure all of you, as you build your companies, you'll start with something like Netflix around there, real performance culture, but then you'll take it up a notch. And what I want to do, in 10 or 20 years is think back at this moment and think, wow, those guys really took it up. I didn't figure that out. Look at the stuff that they've done in culture, in organization. Because you're going to find if you have a healthy company, you can slaughter the world. You can do anything. And it's really about having a healthy, high-performance company. So I think that's one of the parts that I'm sort of most proud about is the gift that many prior entrepreneurs gave to me, I got a chance to return to people by making our culture so open source.
Yeah, I think to your question around moving into the executive chairman role, similar to Reed, I never thought, starting in a basement in Provo, Utah, that I would get a 22-year run. Like, it just wasn't in the cards. And there was a million days where I thought to quit, wanted to quit, and I think our story wasn't one that just catapulted or wasn't that glamorous, and it wasn't a consumer base, it was enterprise software. There hasn't been this tipping point that a lot of tech companies get, but I think our ability was just to keep going and keep grinding ahead. And I think there comes a point, like I remember when we did the SAP deal in 2018, my executive team was below me, wanted to go be the CEO. They wanted to go be the executives that they had seen. And I kind of had to ask myself, well, they're going to go do that somewhere else, or I can slide over and they can do that here. And at some point, that's gonna happen. And I think that the team was way more ready to do it than I was. And now, going into this role, I don't know how to be an executive chairman. I mean, maybe just get out of the way and don't show up.
Find some other passion to put your energies. That helps.
It's actually been the best thing, because when you're around, like, everyone still comes back, and so you actually need to let them make the decisions and go through that and almost sit up and say, hey, here's my cell phone number. I'm here to help. I'll focus on everything outside of the company. You're going to have to run things different than I did, and that's not good or bad, because we didn't have all the answers. And so we made a lot of mistakes. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. The company's gone, all of them have gone like this, but I think understanding where to be helpful, and it really helps to have another gig. Because if you're just sitting there, and I don't know what you're seeing on that front.
Plenty of our colleagues, build a yacht or do that thing, and no one else gets to use it. And I think the thing that's cool about our projects is the public benefits. I mean, obviously what you've done for Salt Lake and Utah generally, what I hope to be able to do for Powder and the community. It's a similar kind of passion project as other people, but it's aimed at creating something for the public that's an incredible experience.
Yeah.
Both?
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to follow up on who's running Netflix? How's that transition?
Fantastic. The guys who took over have been with me for 17 years and 22 years. And so they've got this solid. I'm seeing one of them tomorrow, but I would say it's just like you said, which is my phone's always on for them, and they don't call a lot.
How many people here have been in their job for 17 years or 22 years?
A few. It's good.
Like, I think that's a lost art, right?
It's a dynamic society, and again, if in your career you do 3 companies that each last 10 years, that's still a big success, right? So I think, M&A is not a failure. It can be a great success, and then you'll do a different kind of company. I mean, Netflix, completely different from my first company, Developer Tools, and if I had stayed in Developer Tools, I probably would have done that my whole life. So it's like things happen, and it works out really well.
It just dawned on me that both of you in your second phases are taking on stewardship of two of Utah's most beloved brands, Powder Mountain and the Jazz. And you've both talked about culture a little bit. What's it like taking stewardship of something that is so ingrained in Utah culture, bringing in a little bit of your own culture, but also making it yours that's still for the community? What's that transition or pressure or process like?
You've been doing it longer.
Yeah, I'm a couple years in. You know, first, I think when it comes to culture, it's got to feel comfortable to you. And there's this dichotomy about, like, especially when you're taking over something that's been pretty successful or not, like, what do you give up versus what do you double down on? And you're never going to get that right, but I think first of all, for someone like you or someone like me or Ainge or whoever we've brought into the Jazz or our new coach, they've got to feel like it's theirs, not someone else's. And so I think that's been the part that has required a lot of thought. You know, I think bringing back the Delta Center felt like something that was pretty unanimous, right? Like, that's never happened in the history of sports, and we brought a naming rights back to do that. I think there's a lot that we want to bring back. We're coming into the 50th anniversary this year of this franchise, with some of it being in New Orleans. You know, I remember the first game, I was sitting in that tunnel right there, and it was a preseason game that we took over, and David Griffin, the GM of the New Orleans Pelicans, came and said, hey, what do you think about giving us the Jazz name back? And I said, well, we got to trade for something. You guys own the Saints. Do you guys want to flip-flop? He's like, that's not happening. And I was like, well, could you give us a couple first-round picks with it? And I was like, and they've never bothered us again, so we're going to be the Jazz forever. And so there's all of these things that, and you've got to get in there and understand, like, what's sacred, what's not, and what's the tone and the brand. But I think for me, it's like we're establishing a new culture where we feel comfortable being in. At the same time, trying to hold on as much of the past that we think's important. But a lot of times when you dig into the past and you actually understand how something got there, it wasn't sacred. Mm-hmm. And I think that I've encouraged the people taking over Qualtrics, like, there's nothing sacred here. Like, we do these things called big bets, like, and it's some of the ways that we do our goal setting, and they do them every year, and we set out our big bets for the year. And I've told the team, like, that came about because I needed a slide for a board meeting with Sequoia. And I found a bet, like a picture of, like, gambling, and I said big bets, and that came about. There's nothing sacred there, but if you came in, you would think it's sacred. And so you're trying to figure out which one of those you want to introduce or not. And I think we all have to kind of do that in our jobs. And that's what we've had to do, and we'll continue to do with the Jazz, is hold on to as much as we can. But also, like, we want to hang banners in this arena. Like, we don't have any. And we're not going to tiptoe into the NBA to go win championships from Utah. There's no tiptoe. We're going to have to do some things that are a little unconventional right now. I mean, the world just blew up 10 minutes ago with the Damian Lillard trade to Milwaukee. Like, 0 days in the NBA without drama, right? Like, it happens all the time. So how do we go do that? And I think it's probably similar, because Reed's walking into an already established landscape of winter sports, Olympics, etc., and he's got to decide, where do we fit in there? And I'll let you describe that.
I think it's very similar to what you said, which is you find things to honor from the past, you know, and then pull a lot forward. And how similar, you also own a couple of Major League Soccer teams. So how similar is the culture there versus basketball?
Early days. I think, I mean, we're only a year and a bit into MLS. I think there's a long way to go to bring that to one Utah. And, you know, there's no secret that we're looking at expansion into more sports. And for the state, whatever it is, I'm not going to say too much more, but like we're going to be incredibly active at SEG on going after more sports here. And you look at the streaming and how we're doing that, and you can see how more sports just piles into that. And I think people will be really surprised. I won't talk about it, but there's a lot there. And we're going to do really well. And I know that they want us. And so, but we have a long way to go on bringing that together. It takes a while.
Well, you got an incredible fan base. Remind me, how do you rank in sport market size, and then how do you rank in ticket sales within NBA?
So I think when we're probably 24th or 23rd, I don't know what it is in market size, but I think the way they've historically done market size, is that how you did at Netflix? Did you guys just go look at households? And I think Utah's different. I think we're not trying to build out major urban like places. I think what we're trying to do is people are coming to Utah so that you can have a house and a yard and spread out a little. And I think we've been branded as a small market. We're nothing like the small markets in the NBA and in sports. Nothing like it. We actually don't have anything in common. We have 7 million people that come into the state to recreate. You're going to be a big beneficiary of that.
Yep.
We have top 3 tech community in the country. Okay, where's another small market that has that? You can get on a flight 10 minutes from here, head to London, head to Netherlands or Amsterdam, head to Paris, soon direct to Asia. I don't know any other small markets that you can do that. You have 250,000 college kids within a 90-minute radius. I don't know any other small markets. Plus, you have the youngest demographic, the #1 economy, and the fastest growing state. So
I think I hit a nerve with small market. That might be.
there's things that I'm passionate about in Utah, so no one needs to worry about these teams leaving Utah because, like, this is what I'm about, is the state of Utah. There's days I wish I wasn't. But this is what we're about. And I'll give you an example. We brought UFC here. We were together around that time. Like, we brought UFC here, and UFC has, like, Vegas, New York, Miami. These are, like, the untouchable markets. Then they have, like, Phoenix, Anaheim, Houston. And Utah was right below Vegas, New York, and Miami. So
you're working all the angles. You got a lot of hard work on the Jazz team. If you somehow in the next 10, 20, 30 years get fortunate enough to win a championship, how will that feel?
are we interviewing me here? Like, this is...
that's what the crowds want.
No.
We're in the Jazz Center.
We got Reed Hastings here, and he's asking questions about the...
I'm burning down the clock.
Like, we'll start the parade up at Powder Mountain.
Okay.
Okay, we can kick off the parade.
The Jazz in the championship.
Yeah, well,
we're starting, and we're going to walk all the way down. Like one of the great
it'll be the Pioneer Track all over again, and we will end in Vegas.
We are in.
All right, is that right? It'll be the
good.
longest parade that's ever happened in any sport.
It's only 40 miles. It's good.
Yeah. We will keep that parade going forever.
Okay, Carolyn, take control here.
We have plenty of ultramarathoners in Utah because it lends to that.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know about running it. You may run it. I'll walk it.
So Reed, having you here, I would be crazy not to ask a question. We said we weren't going to talk about tech, but I'd be crazy not to ask a question about content, media, where you think that landscape is heading, especially in the streaming space, and maybe some advice you can give Ryan and the
Yeah.
jazz in terms of where we're heading next?
Well, think about the old landline phones we had. And then mobile phones got a little better every year. It was 1986 when there was the Wall Street movie. And, we see him on the beach and everyone's like, wow, what is that? That's a cell phone. Okay. So it did take, 1996, 2006 was the first iPhone. 2016 was like the iPhone 10. So, these things take 30, 40 years. And the internet is something like that. The internet for television is a total transformation because of being interactive, because of being ultra high definition, because of consumer choice. You can, choose any source instead of what the cable company says you can watch. So it's been a big transformation. And what happened in the mobile case is mobile lines just kept growing and growing, and fixed lines went down. And that's happening now with cable subscriptions, RSNs, everything. It's down, 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 down. It's going to, it'll be a long tail. But streaming is going up and up. And the companies like Netflix or the Jazz that get on that change early will be hugely advantaged in 10 and 20 years. So I think what you guys got to figure out is how to make it more than streaming, how to make it a relationship. So if you guys are fans and you love the Jazz, it's like, I must subscribe to this, and then I get a couple of T-shirts, and I get a ticket, and I get a whole relationship.
You can't make this up.
Think of streaming as moving from the entry ticket. Oh, let's do mobile phone. The entry ticket was a call that worked, okay? And now we have smartphones. So your entry ticket is you're streaming. I'm glad you're streaming, but it's like you've barely begun. And now it's like, how do you have direct relationships with 3 million fans in Utah and 30 million fans outside of Utah? Okay, that the Jazz is an experience, right? And being part of that. So you're doing a great thing to start off with streaming. Congratulations. But then, year by year, it's making that part of a relationship direct to the consumer for all those who can't fit in the stadium.
If you think about Netflix relationship with the consumer,
How many people here have a Netflix account?
Thank you. Thank you.
okay. How many don't?
That's growth, future growth.
Yeah, all right, there you go. That was worth it. That was worth the whole marketing. How do you view your relationship with this audience from a Netflix point of view?
We get lucky because the underlying product, the movies and the shows, are so emotional. Wednesday, One Piece, The Crown, all these things, that emotion gets transferred over to Netflix. Most brands are doing great work, but the underlying product, like a chair, is not emotional. And so then you got to do advertising, and you show all the drama in a chair, holding a baby, giving your mom a back rub, whatever the thing is, and you're imbuing emotion in the chair. In our case, the underlying thing, a title, is emotional. And so we kind of just have to get out of the way. We have to provide this incredible set of experiences, do the best TV shows and movies the world's ever seen, the ones that please you guys the most, the ones you talk about the most, and the brand just drafts that. And so, like in Brand Week and those things, we're always, it's like us, Apple, Nike, and, we're in a very elite atmosphere, not because we're brilliant brand marketeers, but because we're so maniacal about having great shows and great films so that you guys feel that connection.
I remember the moment where you guys won your first awards.
Yeah, the Emmys and House of Cards. That was.
But like the idea was, like a couple years earlier, you weren't even going to be invited or even part of those categories. Like
we were denigrated. I mean, look, I love HBO. I've subscribed to HBO for most of my life. But the head of HBO in 2012, said some really shitty things about us. I mean, just like unbelievable. And he said, the reporter asked, aren't you afraid of Netflix? And his response was, why should I be afraid of the Albanian army? Why should I be afraid of the Albanian army? Like, it's just like such a... So we all went out and got Albanian army crosses, handed them out to all the employees. I swear to God, we worked 20, 30% harder because of that comment that guy made. Okay? And, when I was tired at night, and just like, I got to get one more thing done. I wore it like a cross. I would rub it, and then I'm like, I'm going to do one more thing. I mean, I should have been focused on customers, but I loved beating that guy. And now we're friends, but you know,
Motivation comes in interesting, unexpected places sometimes.
It can.
So Ryan, based on what Reed said and looking at media and tech, so you're not exiting tech, but you're moving into the jazz, and you're making the jazz part of tech in many ways. You announced the launch of a new production company, SEG Media, earlier this summer, and really what you're doing is what Reed was saying as it relates to building relationships with more fans, making it more accessible to fans than ever before. How do you see that evolving again, taking your tech experience into the jazz, taking Reed's advice and that mentorship with media? Where do you see that heading for this group to know what they can expect and how you're going to marry these two phases?
Well, I think Reed's been talking about the model shift. He talked about the phones and how those charts were going in opposite ways from a trending. And then he's talking about linear television where people are cutting the cord and streaming's becoming more. I think, fortunately enough, I'll just be honest with you, there's a lot of sports teams that couldn't do what we just did. We have a massive dislocation in our market. And the dislocation comes from the fact that we signed a television deal 10 years ago. And what's happened in Utah in a 10-year period, if you've been in a company that's been in hypergrowth and it's growing and growing and growing, 10 years later, the company looks very different. It almost is unrecognizable. Well, our state is unrecognizable from 10 years ago. And it's because of Silicon Slopes, it's because of everything that's happened. And what we've been able to do is say, hey, that's an old model. We're willing to take the financial hit because we're confident that the state will figure it out and shift our model from where we don't control our experience at all, where we take our rights for television, we throw it over the fence, they give us a big check, and we say, okay, good luck. The number one thing I've been hit on above everything in coming into this role, above everything, was I can't watch the games. That's the number one thing. And then I watch our team, our GM, our coaches, our players, and I'm like, they're working way too hard to not have their product accessible. And I just have faith in the group. All right, great. Tear down the paywall. It's free over KJazz. Oh, wait, great. That helps a lot of our community. It's over air, but that still doesn't solve that you're going to go, if you're on a plane, if you're looking, it doesn't solve for everyone. The other mistake people made is that there's one fan, the Jazz fan. No. Gary Vee talked about this. We have all sorts of segments of Jazz fans. And we need a product for every single one of them so that they can have that personalized experience the way they want to have that. And you saw, we launched KJazz, huge news. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's back, it's free. If I've got rabbit ears, I can watch. Second, Jazz Plus. Now it's mobile, it's digital, I can get in, I can do that. Watch for the next 3 or 4. And then where companies like Netflix are going, we're going to be positioned, I don't know where it's going, you would know where it's going in 5 years, way better than I do. But what I know is we're going to be ready. We're not going to be stuck in a 10-year deal that we can't get out of and we can't offer that fan experience. Right now, it's where it starts. I know it's, on ESPN today, it's like, oh, Jazz are leading out. We're not leading out yet. Wait till what happens the next 3, 4, 5 years with content, with access to the players, access to the team, and how we're doing this. And that's what's exciting. But I mean, when I hear Reed talk, and it's like, okay, good job. You guys are just starting. Good job. Baby step. Like, I want to know personally, like, where you believe it's going. Where's streaming going? If we got to the point where those trends are going in opposite directions and now everyone's on board and you're now at the party, you're not fighting the Albanian army. Like,
so think of streaming as like electricity. Okay, it's not going to be novel. Streaming itself is just like everything does. People will forget that it was ever anything different. Okay, so then you've got huge choice. And then it's up to each Netflix and the Jazz to create experiences that are incredible for people. And we got to learn from each other. We got to compete for time. And we're both learning from TikTok. I mean, they're doing amazing work and changing tastes. So streaming fades into the background, which is kind of like, oh, you've got electricity now. That's good. Okay, so I'm happy for you. It's not going to be a big thing. But it's just going to be the default, the fabric. And then people will build all kinds of amazing experiences, both in TV shows. I mean, if you get a chance, watch some of the Black Mirror episodes, right? It's trying to see the variation of what is going to be out there. And most of Black Mirror, they make it look really horrible, because people like that. But there's so much ahead to go in technology. Once you had electricity, the amount of innovation, was phenomenal. Okay, so think of streaming and the internet. Is once you've got that, it's this whole new wave, and so many of you will build companies, on top of it, because the underlying infrastructure works well.
So with you talk about that experience, to double click on that, you've got Drive to Survive, which has fundamentally changed F1. You've got Full Swing. How do you think about that world where you're now going in and creating something out of nothing? I mean, talk through that, because that's a whole new experience. Now we're seeing brands go, or industries going, where do we get our drives to survive? How do I get you? I mean, there's a new coaching one coming out with the NBA. What do you, walk through that?
Yeah, I mean, Drive to Survive, there have been lots of shows, and we've done some of them that get very little audience, okay, that are similar, same category. So Drive to Survive was an execution excellence, and it helped that there was an underlying competition between the drivers. So you get the excitement, the speed, the crashes, all the drama brought to, because it's on streaming, huge scale. So, and now we've gotten much better at what are the pieces of that. We did one, on the Tour de France. That's been a huge success. Of course, Full Swing in golf. So now we can more pitch you on, okay, you give us access, okay, and then we'll try to find the story, say in the Utah Jazz struggle for the championship, okay? But the truth is, it's hard on the players. Okay, the drivers of F1 they love the success, they don't love the series. Okay, they're like, well, that was dramatized, and we're like, yeah, that's kind of the point. So just think it's a double-edged sword, which is if you get your team in that media spotlight, it's a little tougher on what we as viewers want to see is the foibles of your players, of the hard times, the down times. And, they're trained to protect that image. So that's why finding the right dance with sports where the viewer gets inside and feels up and down and anxious we have to stimulate those emotions. That's not always so easy on the real life characters. Now, if you're actors, okay, then you can do Orange is the New Black. You can do all these things. So they're just acting. Okay, but when it's your own life up there.
Did you think when they walked into your office and said, hey, we got this idea, we're doing F1, and we're going to, what did you say?
I didn't say anything because my partner, who's now a co-CEO, Ted Sarandos, is the genius on all the content. And I didn't even know about it till it came out. I get
That's good leadership.
No credit. Yes, that's right. It's a hit or miss. I think it's like the draft, right? It's like, wow, you study everything, you try really hard, and then we pick a show that we're going to do, and we miss some good ones, we hit some other ones, because we got a lot of competitors, like Disney and Warner. They're all very good at it, just like your other teams are good, and that's kind of the joy of it, is the competition. Yeah, we want to struggle to be the biggest and the best, but the joy, it's probably true for all of you, is the competition and pushing yourself.
So a final question as we wrap up. Reed, when we were having lunch, you had a few people come up to you and ask you for advice. I know we have a lot of founders in the room who are at various stages in their journey. What would be one piece of advice that you would give to them? And then Ryan, I'll ask you the same question.
I think it's focusing on organizational and customer success and thinking of shareholders as a distinct third. So again, if you focus on your internal organization being really successful, the customers being really successful, that's I think the right way to win. And the irony is that gets you the best shareholder returns. So, we went public 20 years ago at about $1 in current terms, and now we're $400. Okay, but that's because we don't focus on the stock price. We do focus on the operational excellence, including earnings. Okay, but most of our energy is around a healthy organization and customers that love our shows.
How much of as you look back though, is the destination or the journey?
Definitely journey. The only destination thing was going public. And, for many of you, it's sort of the default dream as you grow your company. And that's a good thing, but it becomes kind of too consuming. So I'll use a slightly rough analogy here, but it's like losing your virginity. Until you do it, it's hard to think about anything else. And what you realize later is you didn't know anything about sex, okay? And it just began your learning journey. So once you get public, you get to start to figure out the operating rhythms of a great organization and how to build for the future and doing all those things. But I know in this metaphor, you're all virgins, so I can understand why you want to get public. But think of that when it happens as the very beginning of your education.
I don't think anyone is ever going to forget that analogy.
Yeah,
Thank you for that one.
I heard the CEO of Goldman Sachs yesterday explain going public, and it was less memorable. I think for me, I was just on a call with some founders earlier, and the amount of founders who are trying to scale something before they've actually nailed it, it's one of the traps we fall into is, if you're going to compare yourself to a Qualtrics or to a Netflix, you need to actually right size and almost go down and study where they were at your size. Because the way we operate today is not even a distant relative to how we operated when we were 100 employees and 200 employees and 500 employees. It's not even the same game. And you need to compare like for like, and that is instead of saying, hey, well, I'm a startup, I've got 30 employees, this is what Adobe's doing, wrong comparison. And so there's this concept of nailing what you're doing. Scaling's actually incredibly easy comparatively. I mean, the amount of companies that exist in the world who have hired 2,000 and 3,000 people a year, a lot. Getting that product market fit, getting that culture right, getting everything nailed to be able to go do that, I believe is the hardest part. And I think looking at this side now, kind of looking back at that journey, for me, and that's why I asked the question for Reed, is the journey is everything. Everything. When I see employees or people that we've worked with and colleagues over time, all they want to talk about and the stories they want to tell are the journey. And so if I wish I would have known how much of the journey I was going to enjoy instead of always trying to find a shortcut and a shortcut and a shortcut. And it's like, no, you actually need to go through this because that's what matters. And I've been also in the business where people have given us shortcuts. And it's funny because our people and those same colleagues actually wanted to go back to the hard journey, which is weird. I remember when we combined with SAP and all of a sudden we had access to every company in the world, and it was like a lot of us was given there. It's almost like people wanted to go back to the grind. So if you actually know that's what you're going to feel proud of, that's what's going to push you, that's what's going to help you grow, I think it helps you with a different mindset going through. And I think the other thing to take away is we're not done working. Like I tweeted out this thing that Rupert Murdoch was like 91 and someone else Michael Bloomberg was 81 and they're now moving into chairman roles. Like, what if you're working till you're 80? You can't decide a lot. I know I'm going to be working. You're not done working.
I'm skiing. That's not work.
Yeah. How long are you going to work?
Oh, well, I'm going to snowboard till I'm 90. That's everyone at Powder lives up there. We're all like, we're going to snowboard till we're 90. That's the mantra.
But you're going to be actively engaged in something, right? So if we know we're working till we're 90 or snowboarding, like this is going to be great to watch, and I'll be here for it, then how would you change how you operate? How would you change about how you want to get out of the job and onto the next and the next when good things happen when you stick around? So,
Caroline, I look forward to you producing the event of our epic trudge from Powder Mountain to Salt Lake to celebrate the Jazz Championship sometime in the next 20 years. So it'd be great to come back for that.
That would be a lot of fun. Can't wait.
Everyone, we need to welcome Reed to Silicon Slopes. I can't believe that we get to go build with Reed. And what a treat, what a blessing. And I know that this is a human that's going to give back way more than he takes. And so let's give it up for Reed Hastings.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome, dude.
Thanks.
That's